Good morning, students. We're going to Chapter 8 on the federal courts and the judicial branch, and this is one of the more fascinating studies, chapters in our government class. So I hope you'll enjoy it. I want to read that first section. The United States has a dual court system, that is, a two-court system that consists of the federal courts as well as the state courts, two dual system. The Judiciary Act of 1789 organized the federal courts into three tiers. So you have state courts, you have federal courts, and then the federal courts have three tiers. And we'll talk about those. Those are the district courts, the appellate courts, or the Court of Appeals, and finally the Supreme Court. And then we want to, through its powers of judicial review, the judicial branch plays a critical role in the system of checks and balances. This is Samuel Chase. Samuel Chase was one of the first Supreme Court justices from Maryland. He signed the Declaration of Independence. He was appointed by George Washington to the judiciary, and things were fine when the Federalists were in power. But in 1800, Thomas Jefferson won the election. He defeated John Adams, and that put the Democratic Republicans in power. And they had a majority as well in Congress. Samuel Chase was a Federalist, very outspoken, and so they decided to impeach him. You may have heard recently the president they impeached. So too they impeached Samuel Chase on 8 counts. But impeachment is only part of the process. That went to the Senate, and the Senate failed to convict Samuel Chase. And that has, legal scholars have said that has resulted in judicial independence. American court system, cornerstone, safeguard the rule of law. And the rule of law simply means that no person is above the law. Every person should be subject to the law. It doesn't always work. There are three tasks, you need to know these, of the courts. They want to either A, determine whether a law has been broken and what the penalties are for breaking that law. Decide how to provide relief to those who have they've suffered as a result of this crime. And then they also can determine the meaning of the Constitution and the laws. We've said we have a dual court system, that is that state courts that existed prior to the federal courts because there were states before there was a Constitution. And then the federal courts were established as a result of the Constitution, their federal laws. Jurisdiction refers, as a key term, refers to authority to hear and decide a case. General rule of thumb is that the state courts have original jurisdiction in most cases. They hear cases that involve what are crimes in the state, for instance, murder. But if there is a case that involves the Constitution or federal law, then the federal courts will hear that case. Exclusive jurisdiction means the sole right to hear a case. Concurrent jurisdiction means that a case falls within both the state laws and the federal laws. And you see some things there. Plaintiff, you want to know the difference between the plaintiff and the defendant. Plaintiff is the person making the charges in court. Defendant is obviously defending. Original jurisdiction refers to the court that first hears the case. So we'll see that the Supreme Court has very limited original jurisdiction. Most original jurisdiction occurs in state courts or federal district courts. Appellate jurisdiction refers to courts to which the original rulings may be appealed. There is a branch, and we'll talk further about that, about federal appeals courts. And this is kind of Article 3, Sections 2 and 3. These are areas that the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction, and there are only a few. Structure of the federal court. Structure, Article 3, Section 1 says that the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. And that's pretty vague, but it's vague by design. You'll recall that in 1788, when they were ratifying the Constitution, the object was to ratify the Constitution. They didn't want to put too much specific in there, so this is pretty broad in the judiciary. And then shortly after the Constitution was ratified in the Judiciary Act of 1789, Congress set up this federal system of courts that involves three tiers: Supreme Court at the top, appellate court above them, and then below that, 94 district courts. District courts, let's look at those. They're spread throughout the country. Trial courts of the federal system, they hear most of all of the original jurisdiction cases. They hear criminal as well as civil cases that involve the federal system. Criminal cases means there's been a violation of a law such as murder, kidnapping, etc. Civil cases occur when there's a dispute between two individuals. Which one's right? Where is that property line supposed to be between two people? That would be in a state court, or perhaps two states. Where is the border between Alabama and Georgia? Well, that would involve a civil case, and that would probably go to district court originally. And then there are 94 federal district courts, 89 plus Washington has one, Puerto Rico has one, Guam has one, the Virgin Islands and Northern Mariana Islands. And there must be one in at least every state. Court of Appeals. This is layers of court above the district court. Originally, these were called circuit courts, and judges would ride a circuit and go from court to court. And then in the Judiciary Act of 1891, it transformed the circuit courts into strictly appeals court, appellate courts, and circuit court of appeals. There are currently 12 different circuits, each circuit having a court of appeals. Georgia, Alabama, and Florida are all together, and they are the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. And additionally, there is a Court of Appeals for federal circuit that has appellate jurisdiction over cases by specialized courts such as admiralty courts and things like that that deal with the Navy or high seas crimes. This is a map of the 11, plus you can see there's 11 appellate courts, and Georgia is here. Georgia and Alabama, Florida all grouped together in the 11th. This is the Nutty Night out in California, Washington, Oregon, Idaho. All that gets overturned fairly frequently in the Ninth District, that Court of Appeals. And then at the top tier is the Supreme Court. It's the ultimate appellate court. Original jurisdiction only in cases involving basically ambassador of states and things like that. Originally, they had one Chief Justice, and there were 5 associate justices. And since 1869, there has been one Chief Justice and 8 associate justices. And the Supreme Court receives between 7,000 and 8,000 petitions every year. But they get to choose which cases they hear. They only hear about 80 cases. So someone may say, I'll take this to the Supreme Court. Well, no one takes it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court chooses which court cases they're going to hear. And then there are the courts, as well as the Supreme Court, the appellate courts, and the district courts. There are other courts that are known as Article I courts. And these are courts that are set up by Congress, perhaps to hear bankruptcy or whatever the case might be. They're specialized courts. And the big difference between the Article III courts, which is the Supreme Court, the appellate courts, and the district courts, and the Article I courts, is that Article 3 courts, those judges are appointed for life, while in Article 1 courts, there is a term limit to how long those judges remain on the bench. So this is the Supreme Court, 2015 and 2017. The Supreme Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is sitting in the middle there, and that is Mr. Roberts, John Roberts. And likewise, he is the Chief Justice in 2017. You'll see, though, that they have moved places. And this is the most senior, Anthony Scalia was most senior Supreme Court Justice in 2015, but he passed away. And Anthony Kennedy moved over to be the most the oldest, longest serving Supreme Court Justice in 2017. This is how they sit. This is how they sit in hearing cases. The longest tenured judge is here in the middle, or excuse me, not the longest tenured, but the Chief Justice. Then the longest tenured justice is in number 2 position. 3 position is the next. Then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. There are 9 Supreme Court justices. And this is the current court. You'll see here, again, Chief Justice John Roberts. And right here, the longest tenured is Clarence Thomas. Now, the oldest Supreme Court justice is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, located right here. And then next, right over here, is Stephen Breyer. I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 86 or 87. Stephen Breyer, 81 or 82. And they can retire, but they won't, because the president is a guy by the name of Donald Trump. And this is how, if you want to be familiar with the chart, you want to be familiar with these 4 factors that are taken into consideration in choosing a Supreme Court nominee, or anybody to serve in the court system, any judge. Their legal expertise, are they well respected? Their party affiliation, are they Republican or Democrat? Usually a Republican president is going to nominate Republicans. Democrats are going to nominate Democrats. And then just what is their judicial philosophy? What do they think about the judge? Are they originalists, or are they more activist judges? And then whether or not that nominee will pass the approval of the Senate. Those are also important questions. Those also. ABA is American Bar Association, and since 1952 they have issued reports on the integrity and professional competence of federal judicial nominees, and that would fall into the area of legal expertise. And then the party affiliation, usually again from the president's own party. And their judicial philosophy, I mentioned judicial originalism or judicial restraint. It's the concept that a judge should interpret the Constitution according to the framers' original intent. Judicial activism says, yeah, we need to take that into consideration, but we're going to judge it, some put values that we have today, such as that. Precedent is respect for the previous court's ruling on given legal questions stare decisis. You want to know that. It's let the rule stand. In other words, we're going to go with the precedents that has been established. Senatorial courtesy involves the tradition that a senator from the same state as a nominee to the federal district court and the same political party as the president can block a nomination for any reason. So President Trump, Republican, he's going to nominate somebody from Georgia to be a judge, then he would go to our 2 senators and say, do you have anything against these? Are these good nominees? A blue slip, it is an opinion written by a senator from the state where a federal judicial nominee resides, and both senators from the nominee state are sent a blue slip, which they will submit saying, hey, I endorse this guy or I don't. So you want to be familiar with that. Judicial review grew out of Marbury versus Madison. You knew that. Power to rule.